Hi there, I'm Charles Renfro. I'm principal at Diller Scofidio Renfro Architects. We're based in New York City. We have a firm that branches from small-scale art projects and installation art to large-scale master plans, urban design, large-scale architecture. So we're quite multidisciplinary. Pride ourselves on that. We have about 100 people now with the summer rush of interns, and we have about 35 open projects at this point. That's an interesting question. Architecture is culture for one thing. Architecture is the built environment for another thing. To me and to our practice, it's not just building. Architecture isn't building. It's space and its relationships between people. It's tangible and intangible at the same time. We're very interested in the culture of architecture and in the culture of interrelations between people. We've done a lot of work in the digital realm and in the confusion of the actual with the digital. Of space-time confusion. So to us, architecture is also about confusion and provocation and the unknown as much as the known. So it's really quite a few different things at once. But the one thing I would say is it's not simply building. It's not just buildings. It's not just things that are made in the environment. It's a set of ideas and a set of relationships that can be explored in many different media. Architects are important for our society and culture. I don't say that just because I'm an architect. I say that because we provide an expertise that not every person has. I personally am a little perplexed and confounded and upset by the rise of, let's say, citizen this and citizen that, citizen journalism, citizen architects, weekend warrior architects. Simply stated, we bring thought and knowledge and expertise and history with us wherever we go. And I think that's very important. Today we're in Santiago, Chile, where my first time here, and it's a kind of wonderfully exciting moment for Santiago. It's growing. It's bustling, and yet it's also missing something. And in a way, I think it's missing the hand of the planning or the planner, the architect, to tie these things together. I think these things are important. I will say that architecture for us is both top-down and bottom-up. While the architect gives strategy, gives plan, gives foresight, insight, and intelligence to the future, the architect can't do everything. Architecture is open source. People move through spaces. They engage each other in buildings and in exterior spaces. Those moments of encounter are as much the architecture as the building is the architecture. In fact, I think for us and for the work that we do in the public realm, the architecture is simply a vehicle to produce experience. I don't really like the word innovation. Innovation suggests advancement, suggests progress. These are words that I find to be difficult in the scheme of things. What does it mean to advance something? What does it mean to make progress? And innovation smacks of a false promise. However, I do believe in invention, which I think is different than innovation. And invention doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily mean progress. It means new combinations of things that could be old things. And I'll use an example of a project that we've done, that we did 10 years ago, called the Blur Building, where it was a World's Fair Pavilion. World's Fair Pavilions typically deal with technology and showcasing advances and innovation and things like this for countries and companies seeking to improve their image in the world, rather than foreground technology and innovation and advancements. We chose to go backwards, actually, to use extant technologies. In this case, fog nozzles that you see in every supermarket produce aisle. To use the site, we were on a lake, and we took the water from the lake and pushed it through these fog nozzles, and that was our innovation. The merger of the site with an existing piece of hardware, which wasn't even technology at that point, to create a new experience, to invent a new experience, rather than innovate. I think therein lies one of the big differences. Architecture is a social art as much as a physical art. It's about the way that people move and relate to one another inside the built environment and out in the world, if you will. Therefore, it's very important that architects understand people, and if networking is one of the ways one can do that, great. I think rather, I would think of networking more as a social research, where we need to understand those people that we're building for, that we're thinking about when we're anticipating public space, and the better we know people and the way people think, react, move, engage with each other and with themselves, the more we know these things, the better architects we are and the better places we make. So that's one thing to be said about networking. The other thing to be said about networking is, as long as there's a cocktail involved, it's usually a lot of fun, and therefore networking is a thing that you do on your downtime that is pleasurable, but it's also an experience that you're gaining that you can bring to your work. We've always been interested in technology and understanding where technology fits into our lives. The internet is, of course, one of the areas that people have been paying the most attention to in the past 10 years. It's transformed everything. It's made organizations like yours possible, and for that we're very excited. On the other hand, the internet can't replace or exchange or become real experience. I'm very old-fashioned this way. I believe that space is space, and being in space is being in space. You can imagine it slightly through digital sources that you can find on the internet, for instance, but you can't replace it. And there's nothing like being with people, being in a place. Cybersex never caught on, and there's a reason. So I would say that what the internet and what technology that we can find there can do, I think, is make people want to get out more. Actually, provoke people into wanting to leave their computers and in fact be with other people and be in real space with greater knowledge, I suppose, and perhaps it's a way that people can get to know the world a little bit before they actually get out into it. The education of an architect is always very tricky. There are many different schools of thought. Some people say go out and build. actually see how things get made in the world. Others would say, no, go into the classroom, think theoretically, look at history, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I think one of the biggest, one of the best things you can do is walk around with a tape measure. And it sounds very practical, but we assign all of our employees, we give them a tape measure the day they walk into the door, and we tell them to measure everything they encounter with, we tell them to measure everything they encounter. A table, a chair width, height of a rail, the wall height. And in a way, this doesn't give you the tool to put it together, but it helps people develop a spatial understanding of the world around them, and I think that's very, very important. You have to have an intuitive sense of space and how things go together. The other thing I would say in terms of you know, a tool that is very useful, it's drawing by your hand, not in the computer. By conjuring something up in your head and being able to convey that with your hand and a tool on a piece of paper or what have you is such a powerful strength. And that helps your brain develop a three-dimensional cognizance of itself and the world around you. Whether you're doing great things or not, these are tools to help you approach architecture. They're not exactly tools that help you make great architecture. Architecture, like any business, is just that, a business. There are all sides to architecture. It's not simply the creative parts. It's not simply designing and drawing and envisioning and you know, being Howard Rourke. It's actually managing, hiring people, figuring out the benefits, dealing with people's egos and temperaments and interpersonal conflicts. It's a business like any other, and I think some people are just disenchanted and disheartened when they realize that it's not always fun. I think that me and my partners spend about maybe, if we're lucky, 5%, maybe 3% of our time designing. I don't believe that's unusual for partners and design principals in larger firms with quite a bit of work. On the other hand, it's incredibly rewarding to do that at this level. But I remember when I got into architecture in my first job with Robert Venturi, and Denise Scott Brown in 1988, that was rewarding. Drawing the interior elevations of a building that I knew was going to be made was incredibly rewarding. Knowing that it was going to take 5 years was frustrating, but in a way you just hunker down and you just do the work. You can't put great architecture together overnight. Young students and young professionals should not be discouraged by the fact that it takes some time and quite a bit of energy to make great architecture. It's not something you whip up like a souffle. It just doesn't happen that way.